Howard Carter made one of the most astonishing discoveries in history when he unearthed the lost tomb of Tutankhamun. It was November 5, 1922, when archaeologist Howard Carter first peered into the dark opening that would change everything we knew about ancient Egypt. For centuries, rumors had circulated about a lost tomb belonging to Tutankhamun, the boy king who died at just 19 years old. Now, after years of meticulous excavation, Carter had finally found it. However, who was the young guy who would later be known as King Tut? How was his life, and how was he killed? What sort of leader was he? You must be curious, as questions like these must be appearing in your mind. So, worry no more, as in this video, we'll try to answer all such questions. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, and Julius Caesar are historical legends whose names are as well known as King Tutankhamun's. However, careful historical investigation and advancements in DNA analysis have led experts to the conclusion that the real person behind the name isn't as well known as previously thought. Tutankhamun was born in Egypt's late 18th dynasty under the rule of Akhenaten, the last of his royal family to govern in Egypt during the New Kingdom at the conclusion of the 18th dynasty was a pharaoh named Tutankhamun. His presumed father is the pharaoh Akhenaten, whose body was discovered in the tomb KV55. His mother, a mysterious mummy called the Younger Lady, discovered in KV35, was revealed to be his father's sister through DNA analysis. Around 1324 BC, King Tutankhamun, a pharaoh of Egypt for 10 years, passed away at the age of 19. Before British archaeologist Howard Carter broke through a gateway and opened the boy pharaoh's tomb, which had been sealed for more than 3,200 years, he was little known to modern society. King Tut became the most well-known pharaoh in the world very fast because of the enormous cache of items and riches found in the tomb, which were meant to accompany the king into the afterlife. After Akhenaten's rule, the nation was in economic decline and chaos. Tutankhamun worked to repair the broken diplomatic ties that had existed with other kingdoms, particularly with the Mitanni. Tutankhamun stood 167 centimeters tall and had a slim frame. He possessed the overbite and massive front incisors typical of the Thutmose IV royal family, to which he belonged. He had a slender waist and rounded hips, according to an analysis of the garments recovered in his tomb, especially from the measurements of his loincloth and belts. It has been hypothesized that Tutankhamun had various diseases such as Gynecomastia Marfan syndrome, Wilson-Turner X-linked intellectual disability syndrome, and much more. In an effort to explain his great-grandfather Thutmose IV and father Akhenaten's early deaths in their religion, it has also been proposed that he suffered temporal lobe epilepsy. National Geographic and the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities worked together in 2005 to rebuild Tutankhamun's face. Egyptian, French, and American teams each worked independently to create an approximation of the young king's visage. The American team was working blind, but the Egyptian and French teams knew their topic was Tutankhamun. The outcomes from all teams were quite similar, but it was the French teams that were finally cast in silicone. The circumstances of Tutankhamun's death are unknown. Nonetheless, they have been the focus of extensive discussion and significant research. According to Hawass and his colleagues, the combination of his several weakening ailments, a leg fracture, possibly caused by a fall, and a severe malarial infection led to his death. The Egyptian team has deemed Timon and Meyer's claim that sickle cell anemia more closely matches the diseases displayed by the monarch as interesting and believable. Given his position, Tutankhamun's tomb was remarkably modest in size. He could have passed away unexpectedly before the construction of a more elaborate royal tomb, resulting in his remains being interred in a tomb meant for someone else. This would maintain the adherence of the conventional 70-day waiting period before burial. At least 2 thefts of his tomb occurred in antiquity. However, given the materials taken, such as perishable oils and fragrances, and the proof that the tomb was restored after the invasions, these robberies most likely occurred within a few months after the first burial. The tomb's location was forgotten because it had been covered by the remains of other tombs, and because the entrance to the tomb had been covered by workers' homes. Carter began looking for Tutankhamun's tomb in 1915 and found it in November 1922, KV62. all but 2 sentinel sculptures had been removed by February 1923 from the antechamber. A day and time were chosen for the tomb's opening, and roughly 20 people were designated as witnesses, including Lord Carnarvon, a number of Egyptian officials, museum workers, and members of the government press bureau. The seal was broken on February 17, 1923, shortly after 2 o'clock. A solid gold coffin, a face mask, thrones, archery bows, trumpets, a lotus chalice, 2 Imit fetishes, gold toe stalls, furniture, food, wine, sandals, and new linen undergarments were among the 5,398 things that were discovered in the tomb. The Getty Conservation Institute and the Ministry of Antiquities shuttered the tomb in 2009 so that it could be restored. Although the 5-year shutdown was initially intended to repair the humidity-damaged walls, the 2011 Egyptian Revolution delayed the project. In February 2019, the mausoleum was rededicated. Rumors of a curse of the pharaohs that stressed the early demise of certain visitors to the tomb remained for many years. The most notable was George Herbert, 5th Earl of Carnarvon, who passed away on April 5, 1923, 5 months after the initial tomb step was found on November 4, 1922. The combination of pneumonia and erysipelas, a streptococcal infection of the skin and underlying soft tissue, led to Carnarvon's demise. The Earl was quite ill and feeble due to an automobile accident he had in 1901. The Carnarvons visited Egypt in 1903 after the Earl's doctor advised him to relocate to a warmer country because Egyptology piqued his interest. Carnarvon was already vulnerable due to the strains of the excavation when an illness turned into pneumonia. Only 8 of the 58 people who were there when the tomb and sarcophagus were revealed, according to research, passed away within a decade. Howard Carter, who was 64 at the time, passed away from lymphoma in 1939. The last survivors were American archaeologist J.O. Kinnaman, who passed away in 1961, 39 years after the event, and Lady Evelyn Herbert, Lord Carnarvon's daughter, who was among the first visitors to the tomb following its discovery in November 1922. Both women lived for an additional 57 years and died in 1980. The well-preserved tomb of Tutankhamun and the numerous international displays of the objects it contains are the main causes of his popularity. In the 1920s, the tomb's findings were headline news. A recent neologism that started to be used to refer to Tutankhamun is King Tut. Ancient Egyptian allusions were becoming widespread in popular culture, including Tin Pan Alley songs. The most well-known of them was Old King Tut by Harry von Tilzer, which was released in 1923 and included such well-known performers as Jones and Hare and Sophie Tucker. The moniker King Tut was adopted by companies and brands. The relics from Tutankhamun have attracted a worldwide audience. In 1962, when Algeria gained its independence from France, the displays got underway. From 1972 until 1979, the Treasures of Tutankhamun tour was available. The British Museum in London hosted the opening of this exhibition from 30th of March to 30th of September 1972. The show was seen by more than 1.6 million people. Numerous other nations, including the United States, Soviet Union, Japan, France, Canada, and West Germany, hosted the show after it left them. The American exhibition, which was held throughout the country from 17 November 1976 to 15 April 1979, was organized by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, in which over 8 million people came. Well, that is all for today, and it brings us to the end of our video. Don't be afraid of giving suggestions on future videos in the comment section below.